Welcome to the Operators Podcast. We have Olivia. We're talking about incrementality. We're talking about meta and if meta actually works.
I think incrementality is trying to understand which conversions would have happened or which conversions would not have happened if you didn't run an ad.
Sean, you talked about your incrementality problems last year on Meta. Sometimes I say, congratulations, you have an incrementality problem because it means that you have organic demand.
You might know more about incrementality and digital advertising, I think, than anybody in the world. So I think we're going to bestow that crown upon you.
The rest is history. We started off with a few design partners, and now we have hundreds of customers. We have 640 incrementality tests to show you from Meta.
But without a doubt, meta ads drive performance everywhere. Nobody can say anything about that nowadays. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Operators Podcast. We have Olivia here from Haus. She has exclusive, secret, top, mega secret data that she's going to break down for us. We spent an hour and 45 minutes with it. It is a monster of an episode, okay? I typically recommend you listen to Operators Podcast at 4x speed. This one, you might have to listen to 0.5x speed because we're going to go over a lot of stuff. We're going to use the word incrementality about 4 million times, but Olivia's packing data from over 600 meta studies, hundreds of brands, billions of dollars in ad spend, and she's going to definitively tell us if meta is a waste of money or if it's making me money. So, Olivia, quick word, was it a fun episode?
Oh my gosh, that was a blast. You guys are the only ones that I would stay online recording with until 10 o'clock at night. So, 640 tests run over the past 18 months at Haus. And this spans across, mid-market brands all the way up to the Fortune 100. A lot of insights here, a lot of the questions that everybody is asking in terms of in the industry and on Twitter. What works? ASC versus manual campaigns, mid-funnel, upper funnel. We're going to get into all of it.
Okay. We stayed late to deliver amazing content as quickly as possible to get it to you. Please listen to it. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below, and we will release this report, haus.io/meta, so you can see the report in depth with more reports coming. Haus is an incrementality provider. I pay for them. Actually, all operators pay for them. Amazing piece of software. And I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for being here. Meetab, you and I both use and love Fulfill. You have an extensive history of using other ERPs. So, in your 50-year career, what is the worst implementation story you have heard of?
Worst implementation story is one time we implemented a really horrific ERP called Fishbowl. And the thought process there was, hey, this is slightly cheaper than some of the other big competitors. This company's a little bit smaller. Maybe it's a good idea. And that was not a good idea. It was a very bad idea. It couldn't handle orders. If you did over, I forget what it was, if you're doing over 100K a day, it would basically break, which is obviously not that hard to do. So you'd break the ERP really badly, and there was no real solution for it other than turn it off and then turn it back on again and manually push the orders through. And that was the worst ERP ever. So we ended up switching off of that pretty quickly.
And you switched to Fulfill and you've never been happier. Let's talk about implementation real quick. Things can fail, right?
Yep.
Going to market can fail. You can have a failed process. It's because it requires so much work. You have to put work in to set up your ERP. I wish it was one click, right? But ERPs need to know what your business looks like, where you make stuff, the cost of goods. Your accounting team has to commit to using it. So there is an implementation curve. I have heard about people who spent $500,000 to set up NetSuite and then they have a failed implementation.
Hey, don't forget about the bonus fee that you get to pay Solido.
Right. Yeah. And NetSuite's so hard to set up that they have a third-party firm you have to pay. Everyone pays third-party firms to set their thing up. So look, Fulfill, you're not going to get that. They're going to commit to making sure you're using the features you pay for. They will hold your hand all the way through that process. If it takes 12 months to get the full suite of features, they're there to help you support. I think the biggest scam when it comes to ERPs is the third-party implementation fees. For people who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you pay for a software and then you have to pay other people to teach you how to use the software. Am I getting that right?
Well, and build out quote unquote custom functionality, but that functionality isn't really something that should be custom. And often what will happen is the guy that sold you the ERP, so the guy on the sales team, he doesn't really care whether or not it's the right product for you. And I don't think they're actually measured on if a customer churns after, right? So they don't care. They just want to max out their commissions. So what they'll do is they'll tell you the ERP can do something that it can't, or they'll kind of bend the truth a little bit. So let's say something like, yeah, it can handle 1 million orders a day, no problem. That's not true. If the orders have a lot of kits in them or something, it'll break functionality of the ERP. And what'll happen is you'll end up on there and be like, oh, I need this critical functionality. I thought I had it. You're already knee deep with the implementation. You've already racked up 6 figures in fees. And then they'll say, oh yeah, just go ahead and hire this third party to build you a custom solution there. And you're like, well, this shouldn't even be custom. But now you're stuck paying another 6 figures to another company for help building out a custom implementation.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I'm going to pick on NetSuite. It's from like 1993 or whatever. And
That's when I'm born.
yeah, exactly, dude. It's older than us. Like, do you use any technology that is older than you are, right? You should just use a modern ERP. It's not going to be easy. You have to commit your team to using it, and they're going to want to go back to spreadsheets, right? But with Fulfill, there's a non-failure implementation guarantee. They will make sure if they sign you as a client and they take your money that you are going to commit to using this thing, and they will push you across the finish line. So you got to bring, probably you got to take the ball 49% of the way. They'll take it 51% of the way. Where if you use a NetSuite, they are going to take the ball negative 15% of the way. Then you got to bring it all the way there with third-party support.
I'll give you a good example too. Like we just implemented the production module at one of our brands recently, and they did such a good job that we were able to fly one of our teammates from India over, and he largely handled the implementation himself. Like almost no C-suite involvement. And it was just him, our production manager, and then one of the ops guys. So it was like 3-4 guys just implemented the whole thing. And that's for an op with like 120 employees doing manufacturing, really complex kitting work, et cetera. Not fun, very labor intensive. So that was super cool to see. And I think we're already going to save, what's the savings? I forgot what it was, like 1% of revenue was the equivalent, or 1.2% of revenue. So pretty, like you look at that, that's a lot of savings, right? For something that we could do with one of our employees that we flew over from India. So
Dude,
super awesome.
If Fulfill works for the gremlins of the world, like me and Meetab, and it works for,
Well, I prefer a cockroach.
Okay, the cockroaches, the gremlins, the goblins, it can work for you too. So big Fulfill supporters, here to help with whatever you need. Thank you for supporting the Operators Podcast. They're doing webinars to help you learn how to do ops better. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, welcome to the Operators Podcast. We've got a great episode for you today. It is brought to you, as always, by our great sponsors, Fulfill, Northbeam, PostScript, Rich Panel, and Ceres. Let's get after it.
All right, and we should start off being hella funny and cool. So,
well, then you should not have invited me to this one. I'm already miscast in my role. This is quite a combo of characters. We've never had the four. I don't even think I've ever been on a podcast with Cody before, but like this is a first.
No, dude, we've chatted on the phone once, only once.
That's right. You and I overlap more. Our overlap of our lives to amount of words shared with each other is a very ridiculous ratio.
We're looking to replace Jason now that Cody's a CEO.
That's what this is. It's just tryouts. This is tryouts for Jason's spot. Now that Hexclad is just printing money at a rate where Jason won't even take our phone calls. So
trying out for the big leagues, Cody. I always imagined when I came on this podcast, Cody always referred to Matt as his mentor. And so I knew Matt as Cody's mentor forever until I met Matt. And then I talked to him and I chatted with him and I was like, damn, I want Matt to be my mentor. So I'd always when I came on this pod, I always envisioned myself asking if he would do that for me. But, I've got you guys. It's okay. We'll make this work.
Yeah, I'm trying to have Cody be my mentor, and then Olivia, you can mentor Mike, and I guess that's the circle we'll go in.
Olivia, never meet your heroes. This is for your benefit that you're not on the same pod with Matt.
I can't believe Mike is here. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Why is it so shocking? This is the second time it's come up. Why is it so shocking that I'm here? Is it just like that you don't think I'm a real person, or is it the timing?
No, I thought when I sent you all the outline of the data, like you and Jason were going to be like, oh, nah, not our cup of tea. Advantage plus. We're going to get into that for about 15 minutes, but I think there's a lot here to be excited about.
Sometimes the great thing about the pod is I get to learn as much as anybody listening, and so I'm here to learn. Let's go.
All right. Well, I'll explain what we're going to be learning about. So, welcome to the Operators Podcast. We have Mike, as always, but we also have Cody, who crossed the picket line. He came from the Marketing Operators Podcast. He's officially a CEO. He's hanging out with us. And we have Olivia talking about incrementality. We're talking about meta and if meta actually works. So, she hit me on Twitter. She's like, hey, emergency pod requested. We have a bunch of data. 2 years of data is finally done in research. We want to tell people about it. And I'm like, let's get the guys together. Jason did not respond to my text messages. Matt is on vacation, but we have the A+ squad, better than those guys. Cody and Mike, we're going to go over it. So Olivia, who are you? What do you do? What is Haus?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. Sean, when I moved over from, I obviously, grew up in streaming. I worked at Netflix for a while. When I moved over to Sonos, was my first time in e-commerce. And so I kind of joined Twitter and I started following you all. And I was like, who is this guy who's obsessed with Yeti? Like, I thought you were like, your allegiance was to Yeti. So that's actually how I started to know you guys, is I was just trying to get familiar with the world of e-com. It was new to me. And I learned a lot. I think also, as I've listened to this podcast over the years, it's less about e-com lessons and more about actually like leadership. This is my first time. I've been in leadership roles, but this is my first time as an executive. And so Mike and Sean, Cody, I've learned a lot from you over the years in terms of how to lead as well. But a little bit on my background, I was a growth marketer. I was just like you guys, came up in like I mentioned, at Netflix. And a lot of the Haus story really begins at Netflix because we were, obviously I was there in 2016. We were going global. It was exploding. And we were very focused on the causal effects of our advertising. And that goes to incrementality. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we were running very controlled experiments all over the world, had a very clear picture of what marketing was delivering to the business in a world where there was tons of organic demand and a lot of noise and really hard to actually parse out what paid was delivering on top of organic. And the way we were able to do that was through controlled experiments. So I saw the impact that it could have on a business. We were able to reduce our acquisition costs significantly while I was there by optimizing the business to incrementality. My founder, Zach, had worked with me on that Netflix journey, and he left Google to start this company. And I was actually an early design partner. I was an early customer of Haus. One of their first customers is Sonos, and just saw the impact that it made inside the organization at Sonos in such a short period of time. I was like, all right, I have to be a part of this. I have to take the leap. Kind of joined as Zach's number 2 on the business side, and the rest is history. I mean, we started off with a few design partners and a handful of customers when I joined. And then, got introduced to Cody. He started evangelizing this thing in terms of the D2C community. Now we have hundreds of customers. We have 640 incrementality tests to show you from Meta. And it's been amazing kind of being on this ride over the past few years.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I want to go personal first. We're going to get into incrementality. We're going to get into Meta. We're going to get all that type of stuff. But on your personal journey, Netflix 2016, so you're a millionaire. You're making a ton of money. And you leave to get into e-commerce. Did you have a brain injury in that time period? Like, what was the thought
Oh my
process?
gosh, you're making me go there. So my boss from Netflix is my mentor. He was running all of Netflix global acquisition. He went over to be the CMO of Quibi. You guys remember Quibi?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I joined him to lead growth. $1.8 billion kind of startup. Opportunity of a lifetime in terms of like building something from scratch. Just failed spectacularly. And so I learned as much, if not more, from that experience actually as I did from the Netflix experience, and took a lot of those lessons to Haus. But yeah, I had a brief stint at Quibi in between, then decided to leave LA, moved home. I'm actually in suburban Michigan where I grew up now. And, I'm as big of a Sonos fan as I am Netflix. I was very passionate about the product and another kind of amazing experience.
It's super interesting because when you've been a part of an environment where all the wind is at your back, and sounds like that's exactly what it was when you were at Netflix, it's really disorienting. And it's hard not just to like understand, you were talking about trying to peel apart demand and understand what was going on with customers, what's working in marketing. It can be difficult to self-evaluate, like, how good am I, right? Because you feel like a genius when everything is going well. And I actually think that everybody in their career, you said it, but I feel the same way, that my biggest kind of quote unquote failure experience in my career was probably the most helpful thing that happened in my career, because most of it had been up and to the right, and before that, and really honestly since then. But that period helped me to have higher self-awareness and I think to grow and develop in a lot of ways that I had to. So it's super interesting that that's part of your story on the way to becoming the incrementality queen, which I think is probably the most. You might know more about incrementality and digital advertising, I think, than anybody in the world. So I think we're gonna bestow that crown upon you.
And I'm going to give Quibi some flowers. If it wasn't for COVID, they probably would have worked. Like, they were right that people want shorter content, right? And they have less attention spans. But COVID just let people have hours of free content every single day. And it was just, I think, horrible timing. It just sunk that.
It flooded the market with supply.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everybody had time.
That's generous. You know who also loves Quibi is Sean, your CMO Connor. He told me when I met him, he was like, "Oh, I was Quibi's first subscriber, huge fan." I think that's generous. I think the content, the promise was that the content would be different, and that it wasn't. Part of that is because COVID shut down our productions, and so we were like on our way to getting there. But that's for another time, another story.
Dude, the Quibi podcast. Okay. I want to go to the word incrementality. So I'm going to loop Cody into this conversation. Cody, we were just at Meta. We're doing an awesome podcast. We were high-fiving each other on stage the whole time. You were a superstar. Like, you should have seen this. Like, senior executives inside of Meta were fangirling over Cody, running up and hugging him. But when did you hear about incrementality? Because it's the buzzword of 2025, but last year was MTA. The year before that, it was whatever, something else. So when did you actually start experimenting with incrementality and like deciding that was your golden path?
And what is incrementality for all the people listening to this that have had their head in the sand? Because I'm behind the whole group, and I feel like in the last 18 months, I've been learning a ton about incrementality. So maybe even explain that.
All right, let me try. Olivia, you can tell me how bad my explanation is, or like how usually you go about explaining it, because I'm sure you probably have a much better one. But I think incrementality is trying to understand which conversions would have happened or which conversions would not have happened if you didn't run an ad. And a certain number of the purchases that you get, right? You might think Meta is driving all this performance or YouTube is driving all this performance. A certain amount of those conversions would have happened anyways. And so incrementality is really trying to understand which of those conversions were caused by the media you ran. And usually that's done with a holdout, where you'll have like one part of, the group that'll get the ads and a certain part that won't get them. And then you're able to accurately compare, which is called causal measurement, the impact that your ads actually drove, which is the incremental lift.
I'm going to put this in practice. At Ridge, I'm running Northbeam, right? So I have Facebook ads that are hooked up to Northbeam, and I got a 2x one-day click ROAS on those, right? What Haus will do is tell me, hey, that is your best ad. Like, you still need Northbeam to tell you what your best ad is. But Haus will tell me, hey, that ad is actually a 1.8 because there's some amount of those purchases that would happen without that. Right. And when I talk to Connor, because Olivia, you so graciously pointed out all of my good ideas come from Connor. I basically I talk to him for 2 hours every day, and the best stuff he says, I just take it out. But it's that you're lost in the jungle. That is being an e-commerce marketer, and you need a compass, you need a topographic map, and you also need a normal map telling you how to get back to the freeway. Right. So like, one of those, let's call it Northbeam, is going to be your compass. It's going to tell you directionally what's going on, but then you still need like a path to get back to civilization. And that's when you layer on all these different tools. So did we get that wrong?
I'm so glad Cody had to do the what is incrementality. No, it's the student becomes the master. And I mean, like Mike, you hit on this in the beginning. At Quibi, we didn't have an incrementality problem because we didn't really have organic demand. So it's not really a problem when you're first starting off, like even starting Haus. Like, we kind of knew, what was working.
It's a first world problem, you're saying.
It's a luxury. When we come, like Sean, you talked about your incrementality problems last year on Meta. Sometimes I say, like, congratulations, you have an incrementality problem, because it means that you have organic demand. And that's when this really becomes a problem. I typically see this starting around maybe like mid 8 figures. You're starting to diversify off of Meta. You're starting to do more partnerships. You're lighting up top of funnel. And it just starts to get really fuzzy, like what's actually driving the business, especially if you're omni-channel. So that's just my only note, is that this starts to really become a problem when the business is taking off. That's around the same time all these platforms are kind of taking credit for these conversions while you're left unsure of whether these are driving new business for you. And the other thing I would say in terms of the incrementality is this idea of a holdout experiment, kind of analogous to a randomized control trial in healthcare, where we're understanding, placebo, drug, like what would have happened anyway. And then there's the geo-testing part that's important. This is what allows us to understand omni-channel impact of when you're moving off of the world of user level tracking and click-based kind of journeys, and you just move off of that tracking and into the world of regional testing. We say, hey, instead of not delivering these ads to this set of users, instead just turn off your marketing in these regions, maybe, turn off Ridge ads on Meta in 30% of the country. Then we're able to see not just what is the impact on D2C and what is the impact of these digital actions, we can understand how users are going to Amazon and into retail as well, which has really helped complete the picture.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the incrementality is, right? Is that that digital ad didn't lead to a Ridge.com conversion. It led to a conversion in Shields or something that it's very difficult. You've got to use, I'm guessing, some statistical models to kind of parse that stuff out of, hey, when we do these holdout tests, we can see how this is popping up in different channels.
And ads work. Something I'm going to spoil the test we're going to do. It's look, when you show ads to people, you show it to enough people at a large enough scale, some action will be taken, right? And we want those actions. If you're a D2C brand advertising on Meta, you want all those people to go to your Shopify store, make a purchase, subscribe for emails, come back via SMS and retargeting, whatever else. But that's just the world's way messier than that. Half of all e-commerce transactions happen on Amazon, and we're in Best Buy and Nordstrom's and Shields and all these places. So when I run an ad, I'm increasing my surface area of success by being all these new channels, right? But that also decreases the signal from the ads, right?
Yeah.
So Cody, when did you decide to go all in on incrementality?
It was probably 2023, I think. We're on our way. I think we did 100 million that year, but we had a point during, it was really two things that kicked off. We had a point during the year where we plateaued. Actually, before that, we were spending on YouTube, and YouTube was kind of our attempt to get some upper funnel, try to reach some new audiences. We were spending probably $5K a day, but we couldn't really justify spending more. We thought it was working, but obviously in Northbeam, the return on ad spend was way lower than Meta. We saw signs that we thought it was working. I think at the time, our MER wouldn't have been good if we were spending that much. It was enough of our budget that we couldn't just go waste, 5 to 10K a day. And we'd look at post-purchase survey, and as we spent more, it would go up. But we didn't quite have the confidence to say hey, we should be doubling this. We should really be doubling down on this. And we actually tried to run our own holdout without a data science team. I don't know if I ever told Olivia this, but without a data science team internally. And we ran it, and I was just I don't really know. I don't know if there's a lift. I think there is. It just was terrible data and terrible math. So that was one of the things, but I just hadn't come across Haus before. Maybe I'd heard of another incrementality platform. I'll let you guys decide what to do with that. I had heard of another one, but never really looked that far into it. And then we got into this point where 80% of our spend was on Meta, and we weren't growing as fast as we want. We hit a little bit of a plateau, and we just were reaching the same people over and over. And so we needed new strategies to break out of that. The problem with that was we needed some type of upper funnel strategy that was going to reach people that was not going to look good in a Northbeam or on a platform. And it was what our Meta team was recommending. We just got into disruptors, but if you run a reach campaign, you're going to get almost no attribution. So I think for both of those things, incrementality was just a tool to be able to properly measure, invest in some upper funnel brand awareness stuff without just lighting money on fire. Because I think we were big enough at the time where we knew that we needed to diversify and do some non-click based things to reach new people. But we weren't big enough where we could just do some brand spend and light money on fire. So incrementality was and is really the only tool and way to measure those properly.
I think this is actually just the way you said it's really good, Cody, that to me, incrementality has been a lot about understanding what's economic and what's not for our business. I mean, obviously, like you said, Sean, ads work. And if I could just saturate everything talking about Simple Modern, then we would sell more stuff. But a lot of that would be uneconomic. I'd be upside down on it and I'd go out of business. And so what I'm trying to do is find what's the maximum surface area of economic advertising that I can do. And incrementality for us, because we're in a lot of different channels, potentially really grows the universe of advertising that we can do. And then the other thing it does for us is that it helps us to understand on low incremental things how much we're willing to pay for them. So a really good example we've talked about on the pod, when you advertise your brand's keyword on Google or on Amazon, like sometimes we've had periods where we went like, we're not giving them a dime. We're not advertising there at all. But there's obviously like some incrementality by advertising on simple modern key terms on Amazon. It's just really, really low that most of those people, 80, 90% of those people would go ahead and buy anyway. So we just bid accordingly. We're able to kind of take the numbers and adjust them and say, well, hey, you know what? 9 out of 10 conversions Amazon's going to show isn't really incremental. So we're going to take that number, we're going to divide it by 10, and then that's what we're going to kind of base what we can bid off of. And so it's been helpful there, and even understanding in some of these low incremental places, how much are we willing to bid because what's economic?
Well, I was just going to say something that Cody always talks about. I know it triggers him is when someone says like something is binary, like incremental or not incremental. He's been pushing this hard of like incremental at what cost? Because like brand search, you know, it can be a low incrementality. It can also be super cheap. And so you need to understand the economics of it. And I think he's been really good about educating the market on that concept.
I'd even argue they're correlated, right? That the reason why it can be really, really cheap is your click-through rate goes to the moon. It's because people are so highly qualified. If somebody searches simple modern, there's like almost 100% chance they're going to click on something. And because that click-through rate is so high, you can bid really low and still get the volume. But that also, like, I bet there's a really high relationship across channels between incrementality and click-through rate.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, Olivia, right now we have a 47% incremental lift on Meta, but we're 30% above our break-even CPA. So yeah, they're definitely not perfectly correlated.
Most brands are leaving money on the table with SMS. Not us at Ridge. SMS is our number one revenue driver, and PostScript is the reason why. Here's the deal. SMS is an email. If you treat it like email, you're doing it wrong. PostScript gets it. They help brands like ours turn SMS into a high-margin, high ROI channel. And here is 5 reasons why PostScript prints money for us. They stole the 5 reasons why landing page from all the D2C operators, but here you go. 5 reasons why PostScript print money for us. 1, we stop wasting sends. Blast and text randomly, bad move, expensive move. PostScript dialed in our automations and subscriber LTV tracking. The results, our abandoned cart recovery rate doubled. They told me that. They did the data. It doubled. More subscribers equals more cash. List growth isn't just about getting numbers up. It's about getting buyers in. PostScript's AI pop-ups and cashback incentives powered by Fondue grew our list 3 times faster. And those people are actually spending money. AI-powered SMS equals instant conversions. Customers don't wait around. If you're not answering instantly, you're losing sales. PostScript AI does the heavy lifting. We went from hour-long response times to closing sales in seconds. An hour-long response time is actually best in class. We have an amazing customer service team using Rich Panel and other awesome tools, but it still takes hours to respond to all these people coming in. With AI-powered SMS, we're getting instant conversions. The number 4 reason why PostScript is the king of SMS. PostScript auto-optimizes for profit. They have this new thing called infinity testing. It consistently finds the best messages to send. No guesswork. We saw a 20% revenue boost just by letting it run. Number 5, we're not getting fined. 1 SMS compliance mistake equals a lawsuit. PostScript makes sure we don't mess this up. We scale without worrying about legal headaches. The bottom line is brands are winning at SMS and growing faster than anybody else because they're using PostScript. If you're serious about scaling up, go to postscript.io, tell them Sean sent you, and get a free SMS audit. Your competitors are going to do this. If you sell pans, they are rushing right now. So if you're not on PostScript, you got to get here before your competitors. Get that free SMS audit. And the results for Ridge in 2024, we had 1 million opt-ins. We had 500,000 new subscribers. Revenue was $37 million, grew 100% year over year just on SMS. The ROI, 108x. This is a 151% increase year over year. We had a 106% increase in revenue, 108x ROI, and close to 500,000 new subs. SMS is killing it for Ridge. We think PostScript is the way to go. We think PostScript is the best name in SMS. They have a 5 reason why. They're not going to waste money on sends. They're not going to leave your customers out to dry. You're going to get more subscribers. They're going to instantly convert them with AI. They have auto optimization for profit. They're going to keep you compliant. I think SMS is still the frontier of messaging to customers, and PostScript's the best name in it. Ridge did $40 million in SMS last year. This year will probably double again, $100 million in SMS probably because of PostScript. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you guys. Talk to you later. All right. And so we're going to have two quick points. The first is I want to unpack what Mike's talking about, where he has a lot of different sales channels. So if Mike runs TV ads, okay, it's going to look horrible on his D2C business. Simple Modern TV ads, trying to get people to buy on simplemodern.com. In Northbeam, it'll look literally bad. Like maybe you won't get a sale, Mike, but if you hold an incrementality holdout test on that, you'll see that sales go through the roof at Walmart and Target and Sam's Club and all these other places you are.
Which we're actually a customer of Haus, and we've been running these exact tests. And I don't know, Olivia, if you've run into a brand that says Omni-Channel as us, but it seems like that's what you guys are seeing is exactly what Sean's saying, that there's actually quite a bit of halo across these channels.
Yep. And the more view-based a channel, the more we see that impact distributed to omni-channel. So a channel like TV or channel like YouTube has disproportionate impact on retail and Amazon because there is no click-through.
Yeah, dude, without a doubt. And people are already going to be doing shopping at Target every week, at Walmart every week, at Amazon every week. The next thing, this is for the audience. So we talk a lot about marketing measurement, and I'll use Rich as an example. It's yesterday, I spent half of all of my money on marketing, right? So to make the product, to pay the people, to make a profit, to ship it to America and then ship it to a customer is still less than what I pay on marketing, right? And we optimize the hell out of the rest of that value chain, right? COGS, we have nailed that down, right? Freight, I will negotiate with my freight vendors like crazy. Those are mostly solved games where marketing is not really a solved game. Speaking of, Dweeb Connor just called me my CMO. But marketing is not a solved game, right? So if I'm going to spend $300,000 a day on marketing, if I can get slow improvements in that via Haus measurement, Northbeam measurement, MMM measurement, they all kind of just pay for themselves. Because if all of them make 1% better, it's $3,000 a day. So that's like why we spend so much time talking about it. That's for the audience. You guys have anything you want to add before we move to the next section?
Yeah, that was such a humble brag to say you do $600K a day.
I mean, dude, we're coming off a Prime Day. We had a good time.
Marketing is the paid is usually the biggest expense, it's the biggest line item on the P&L. And so sometimes when I'm wondering, like, is this experiment worth it? Like a step change performance improvement in Meta can make a very meaningful difference in your business. And so it keeps you grounded of like, hey, yeah, this is worth it.
From my perspective, Sean, the single biggest hurdle in our business is finding out how to spend more. Because we have kind of these margin handicaps where we don't have the landed margin structure that you have, and we're going across channels. And so when somebody says they're spending a ton of their money on marketing, I actually admire that. I'm like, that's a skill, believe it or not. Being able to economically spend a bunch of money at marketing is like a cheat code if you can do it. And it's not just burning some VC money. If it's like, yeah, I can actually make this work and I can keep the wheel going, I think it's a huge skill.
On the opposite of the business, it's a solved problem. Like Mike, if you want to make more money, you can cut COGS, right? You can cut COGS with better inventory management to free up more cash, to better inventory orders, bigger inventory orders. That's how you cut COGS, right? Freight, you can have more nodes shipping stuff out. Those are all solved problems. I can't tell you how to spend more money on Meta tomorrow, right? That's why we do all this testing. And that's why on a marketing heavy org, it's the most important thing, right? So you're basically just paying for, it's like you're playing blackjack and you're paying for insurance or whatever when you run incrementality tests or MTAs or whatever else.
Well, and it's so much more contextualized to the business. Like Cody spending more for where he's at right now probably looks very different than Ridge spending more, which looks different than Simple Modern spending more. And so like you're saying, if you're trying to like say, hey, how do I increase my landed COGS margin, like, okay, here's the 6 things you do, basically, no matter what type of business you're doing. But if you're trying to increase how much throughput you're getting on marketing, it's like, in terms of the channels, the tactics, the techniques, like there's like 1,000 different ways you could go. And I think it varies wildly based on the business.
Just one more point. I think Cody Taylor said this on the Marketing Operators podcast of like, he was kind of like calling the executive team to like, hey, don't spend so much time in the ad account. This is like the growth marketing absolute smash. Like you need to focus on products and expansion and, don't worry about the ad account. And I actually really agree with that. I think like maybe as an executive team, get out of the ad account and don't worry about it. But somebody on your team needs to be focused on it. Like that was like, just that it, like, I was like, you know what? I agree with this maybe in the C-suite of getting out of the ad account, but like, if you don't have somebody who's thinking about this, you're leaving money on the table because these are the things that actually make a difference.
You're not allowed to come on either of our podcasts and say you agree with Taylor.
I am saying this to, maybe Cody, maybe he was lecturing you there of like, you're a CEO now. So maybe he was telling you to get out of the ad account.
But yeah, what you said was Taylor Holiday was right. People should spend less time in the ad account. But your counterpoint is, well, someone has to. So yeah, dude, if you have a team of 50 people, 60 people, I don't spend any time in the ad account, right? I don't think Connor really spends time in the ad account anymore, right? We have 3 or 4 employees. That's their full-time job. Our job is to bring new tools into the ecosystem so the ad account gets better, right? If it's new ad channels, new ad concepts, new products, like that's what we should be bringing into it. But it is, very privileged for me to be like, yeah, I don't have to spend time there anymore. If you're listening to this and you're a 7-figure brand, you're like, yeah, nice, Taylor. I have to spend time in the ad account. I can't pay for anybody else.
Well, and you've earned your way out of the ad account is the way I would say it, Sean, because you guys created the structure of like, hey, here's what we do, here's how we approach it, here's the playbook. And then once you have that, it's easier to pass that down and have other people run it, right? But somebody's got to establish that. And most people like that are not at executive levels of thought, it's difficult for them to establish the playbook. Is kind of what I've learned. That's probably the executive function.
Okay. So before we get into the data, last calls on thoughts about incrementality, everything going on, the past, the present, the future. Cody, you're the biggest adopter. You're the biggest bull in the whole space.
Olivia, it's got to be cool. Like, obviously, you guys did not invent incrementality, and the other tools out there, and people are using it. But to see, you get into the DTCX community and just like see everyone talking about it, and obviously, you guys have pretty much all of like the top brands, everyone I know of as a customer. Like, it's got to be a really cool feeling.
My biggest question when I joined Zach was like, do enough brands actually care about this? That, they're willing to like really go back into their org and like change the way decisions are made. And so Cody, you probably are, very much responsible for driving the movement, but like the movement is happening. And I wasn't at the Meta Summit, but I heard it was like every other presentation. And so, yeah, it's been great. I think we're still like in the early innings, right? Like what I was talking to Meta about actually is that most of their brands now are running incrementality tests, but only a percentage of those brands are making decisions on those experiments and actually making changes and reallocating budgets accordingly. And that's the next job to be done is like, how do we really operationalize this and get it closer to kind of the source of truth such that you're getting value from these experiments? So that's the next job to be done.
Dude, and Cody said it. So incrementality and geolift studies are like a science and you're a practicer of the science, right? Just like MMMs, there's a bunch of MMM tools out there, but like it's existed as a concept for 25 years or whatever. So, we're going to go over this data. I promise the data. I'm leading with the data, but maybe you could just tell us why Haus is my preferred incrementality partner. Why does Connor choose to pay you guys?
Not just yours. I think preferred every operator and every operator.
Oh, there you go, dude. A clean sweep across the board. Like why does the service win?
Our company is filled with PhDs in science. They all kind of came over from Amazon. These are PhDs in economics, and they're like really sweating the details in a way where I can come on this podcast and like confidently talk about this data and know that it's right and know that these experiments were run correctly. I think there are a lot of decisions you can make when you set up an experiment. Cody kind of ran into this himself, and in power questions and significance questions and statistical questions that really matter when you're deciding whether or not you want to bet your business on a result. And like that is our mission as a company, is we want to create a platform and create this kind of suite where like we ourselves would bet on the results. And for better or for worse, that makes us like a little bit more expensive, but I can come on this podcast and feel good about the data that I'm sharing. And I think that really matters in the world of measurement.
You might remember that Ridge switched to Rich Panel about a year ago. Since then, our orders are climbing, yet support tickets aren't. Rich Panel's self-service portal now lets 47% of our shoppers solve their own issues instantly. We used to answer every single ticket with a person. Now that one change is on track to save us $500,000 in support salaries just this year. Our customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. It's above 96%. And we're doing that with less people, with more orders. AI is all the rage. E-com operators are finding ways to leverage AI and improve the revenue per employee. Rage targets over $2 million per full-time employee, and RichPanel is helping us achieve that goal. RichPanel offers one of the most straightforward ways to leverage AI and improve your bottom line. Here's how RichPanel's AI is different from anything else out there. First, RichPanel spends the first 24 hours just learning your past conversations. Then it takes all that knowledge and creates self-guided service flows. There's no chatbots, there's no hallucinations. It is just exactly what your customers need to see and hear to solve their problems immediately after that first 24 hours. Our team saw the impact on day one. We're getting more tickets. They're being resolved faster, better, with a higher level of competency and a higher level of satisfaction, all with less people on the team. So if you're serious about boosting revenue per employee and freeing agents to do higher value tasks, book a demo. Switching is painless. They do data migration. They train the staff. Everything's handled. It's a white glove service for operators listeners. Brands like Ridge, Jones Road, Pila, Lomi, they're all already switched and they were live within 2 weeks. They guarantee 30% ticket reduction in the first 60 days or your money back. Think about that. You're going to get a bunch of customers coming to you. Q4 is just around the corner, and they guarantee 30% reduction in human tickets in the first 60 days. If that's interesting to you, go to richpanel.com/demo to book a demo. That's RICH panel.com/demo. Get started today. Thank you so much, Rich Panel, for supporting the world's #1 e-commerce podcast and being on the greatest show on earth. Let's get back to it. All right, dude. Well, let's get to the data then. So we are going to screen share for all video listeners. Okay, they'll be able to see it. For audio listeners, which is at this point 50 million of you guys, we will just dictate what's happening. So me, Mike, Cody, we'll cycle through. The first thing, this is the Haus meta report. Lessons from 640 incrementality tests. What did we learn, guys?
Yeah, this is so exciting. I mean, usually when we're all on Twitter. Probably not Mike. Mike is better than that. But Cody, Sean, and I, when we're on Twitter and we're reading these posts, it's like not really backed in a whole lot of data. It's somebody maybe who ran 1 or 2 tests and they're making claims. Like, this is a very large sample. This is probably one of, if not the largest sample of incrementality data that I've seen. So we have 640 tests on Meta that we've run over the last 18 months. Average test duration is about a month, give or take. The effects of Meta are more immediate. So we only had about a week-long post-treatment window. We'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of what that means, but that's where we end the test and kind of observe the behavior of the markets for some period of time to understand latency. And then size of brands in these experiments. So folks often ask, like, what types of brands do you work with? We work with everyone from, like I mentioned, kind of low to mid 8 figures, all the way up to the Fortune 100. And like as Cody mentioned, this data set is probably very heavy in D2C, just given how many of the D2C brands that work with us. Average annual Meta spend is about 14 million. So that's the average Meta spend of the brands included in this study, and they range dozens of verticals, pretty much, all of consumer in terms of categories.
I guess what you're saying is the average brand in this study is at least spending $1 million a month on Meta, right? And is that kind of the target to work with Haus? Like, you want to be spending across multiple channels, roughly $1 million a month or more? Is that that's the dream customer coming to you?
I mentioned this up top, but I think if you're smaller and you're just starting out, incrementality is not your biggest problem. And that's not going to help us probably get more customers for me to say that. But, if you're spending primarily in Meta, your digital business, I don't think this is a tool that you need. And I'll often tell brands that, like, hey, if I were you, I would just run Meta conversion lift studies, get familiar with the vernacular, like the terminology that you see in terms of these incrementality tests, run them for free. And then when you start to see the incrementality really start to kind of deviate from what you're seeing in platform, then come back. And so, yes, this is, the average size brand. They're on a few channels. Many of them are omni-channel. Mike mentioned, like, are we the only or the most omni-channel brand? That's like a very big use case for coming to Haus. I'd say that's like the exception, is when a brand is smaller, but they're very omni-channel. That picture is very fuzzy in terms of what's driving the business. So yeah, this is a sweet spot where at that average spend, you're probably on more channels than just Meta, and that growth flywheel is taking off. Like I mentioned, you've got partnerships really starting to take off, and you're getting a lot of value from this approach because it's really changing the decision making in your org. It's changing the way you allocate dollars.
And to give you a real life example, like, we're running a bunch of podcasts right now. This will come out before, we're doing a very big flight of podcasts for August. We'll be on all the top podcasts. Millions of dollars in spend. We made the decision because of Haus results, right? So like, that's how these incrementality tests end up influencing like real world spend, right? But so 640 tests. Roughly how many brands are in this test? Can you share that?
Hundreds.
So this is just from the stats side of things, this is just a massive sample size.
Massive.
And you're really good about this, Olivia. And I know your team thinks this way. You think in terms of nuance. We talked about it earlier. It's not like, do things work or not? It's just nuance and spectrums and things like that. But like, with a sample size this big, what we're probably going to talk about from the results doesn't mean it's always true in every situation, but you're going to get a really good feel about the way that the system is generally working when you get to see that much data. So it's a real, like, one of the reasons why it's great to have you on the program is that from your seat, you're able to look at the whole ecosystem in a way that very few of us are able to, where you're seeing across a massive swath of brands what are the things that are holding to be true, and so this is fantastic. I appreciate you sharing the data with us.
Okay, and then Cody, tell us the language real quick. As the former CMO, what do all these words mean?
So you have Advantage Plus campaigns, formerly known as Advantage Plus sales campaigns, or Advantage shopping campaigns, or ASC. So we'll probably call them ASC from here on out. That's like the new type of kind of AI assisted campaign that we believe Meta is going to for all the campaigns, but it hasn't been confirmed. Olivia, I actually reached out to Meta, so let me see if I have an answer on that. I saw your tweet. Manual campaigns are old campaigns, non-Advantage Plus, where they had a lot more targeting options, a lot more campaign setup options. So it was a little bit less streamlined and allowed advertisers a little bit more flexibility. Incrementality factor is, I'll just read it, but the ratio between the amount of incremental sales a channel drives relative to the sales reported in platform. For example, let's say like we run YouTube ads at a 0.5 ROAS, for example, just in the platform based on the people that click on it. Well, based on the views, right, 40% of people that see a YouTube ad are pricing it on a TV. It might actually drive a lot more incremental conversions than that. Let's say we find that it drives double the amount. That's a 2x incrementality factor. So then we can go and we can adjust our either Northbeam or channel level CAC targets to reflect the incremental lift that it's having. Or for example, let's say you ran a Google brand search campaign at a 4x ROAS, but really you found that only a fourth of that was actually incremental. You can haircut that and now divide that, essentially by 4 to figure out what your target needs to be. And so that's something that I think Olivia talked about, operationalizing incrementality, but that's something all brands should be doing. iROAS is like return on ad spend, but it's just the incremental return on ad spend. And then post-treatment window is you can actually leave the results open. So after your holdout is gone, after you've removed your exclusions, and you're targeting now the whole country, or your test is off, Haus will actually leave the results open to see if there's a lag. So something like Meta we'll talk about, maybe not a big lag, but YouTube or TV or something like that might have a longer lag, and you might actually get more or better results if you leave that test open for a little bit longer. Can
you tell us about how you set that window? What does that say about the duration of how long an advertising impacts a customer's behavior?
Sure. Yeah. So there is a length of time where we stop feeling confident that any effects are like actually a result of the test. And so what we say is we'll measure a post-treatment window for as long as the test ran. So if you ran a 4-week test, we'll do a 4-week post-treatment window. Beyond that 4 weeks, we're not sure. It's hard for us to really differentiate signal from noise. So we say make your post-treatment window at most the same length as the test. But what we see, like we see more kind of view-based upper funnel channels have a significantly higher lagged impact. And we'll talk about this in the data. Like, YouTube showed a lot more activity in the post-treatment window than Meta did. And so that's, just likely a function of the algorithm and the fact that Meta is finding users who are further down the funnel and in market to buy.
So the incrementality factor, think about it as your kicker, right? So if you get like a 2x incrementality factor, it's like a 2x kicker. So if whatever your North Beam results or in-platform results look like, you can double them or times by whatever your incrementality factor is. The post-test observation window, which you guys are talking about right now, Criteo famously had a 365-day look back, right? Where post-click, they're like, yeah, every sale for the next year, that's us.
Until the heat death of the universe. We get it all.
Yeah, so we all know that that's ridiculous, right? But we all know that a Super Bowl ad will have more impact because people will talk about it for a week or 2 weeks or whatever than an Instagram reel ad, right? So it's just like trying to measure those things and actually square them into the real world. So awesome. That's the framing of the data. Now we can get into the juicy stuff. Olivia, what do you got?
Cody, are you wondering why you joined tonight? Like, Sean is making you explain all the hard stuff. My job has been so easy tonight. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's 8:45 here. I thought I was just here to supervise, make sure these CEOs actually know what they're talking about with marketing.
Cody has 2 kids, 2 young kids. He's like, hey, I can only join at this particular hour. It's the only time. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. Now explain how marketing works real quick, Cody. And that's the podcast.
Should we take bets on when we're going to lose Mike?
No, he's in, dude. He's locked in. He's excited.
Listen, I'll go for 3 hours. Let's talk. I mean, if I'm going to get free coaching from Cody, Olivia, and Sean, then I'll take all I can get.
All right, let's do it. I just switched slides to the findings. So we have 3 slides of findings. The first, the headline, is Meta works. Meta's impact is undeniable. We have a Slack channel at Haus called Cool Tests, and this is where the scientists will kind of post cool tests that they've seen. And it's often meta tests because what we'll do is we have the pre-treatment where the control and the test lines are kind of moving right on top of each other. And then we launch the experiment, we turn off Meta in part of the country, and you just see this huge gap in sales in the regions where the Meta is still on and where we turned it off. And so, like I said, Meta it really works. It represents 77 of the 100 highest lift experiments ever run on Haus. That, of course, is a function of spend. We talked about this a little bit, isn't lift a function of spend? Yes, that is true, but advertisers would not be spending that much there if it didn't work and if they hadn't validated it. So that's key point number 1. I'll run through all the points and then you guys can dig in wherever you'd like. But I'll run through. There are 5 points on this slide. So number 1, the impact is undeniable. Number 2, brands are highly dependent on Meta. Meta drove on average a 19% lift to the brand's primary KPI, whether that's revenue, new customers, whatever they care about most. What this means in terms of that 19% is that on average, the brands in this study, if they turned off Meta, pretty much overnight, they would see their business fall by 1/5. They would lose 20% of the business. So this is massive. And again, this is just the average. We've run tests where we'll see Meta's driving 60, 70% of a business. And I love to see those tests because it's so clear and it's cool. It's also a little bit scary, I would say, is when you're that dependent on Meta. If you're a health and wellness brand who is affected by their changes, it's you do want to be a little bit more diversified. So that's point number 2. Brands are very dependent on this channel. Number 3, this is where we'll get into the post-treatment window, but the impact on Meta is more immediate than we see on other channels. So 96% of account-wide Meta studies detected significant lift by the midpoint, and the average lift in post-treatment iROAS was just 26%. So to help you contextualize this, I believe when we launched the YouTube report, the post-treatment effects were as big as the test. So if they were getting a 1 in terms of iROAS on YouTube in that post-treatment window, that would bump them up to a 2. Here in Meta, we're just seeing a little, we're seeing about 25% more coming through in the post-treatment window. And like Cody, you've run a lot of Haus tests. We've talked about this. Like for a lot of these channels, you see a lot of the effect happening at the post-treatment window. But with Meta, it is very immediate. We see it almost instantly. So that's point number 3 in terms of immediacy. Number 4, this is going to be a big one. I think folks are going to be really interested in this. Meta actually underreports if you're looking at click-based attribution. So we see on average, D2C iROAS exceeds that 7-day click in platform by performance by about 15%. Meaning if your ROAS in platform is a 1, you're probably getting a 1.15. So this is great news in terms of, a lot of fear that Meta is over-reporting. This, of course, depends on your attribution settings. But if you're measuring on a 7-day click, it's actually under-reporting. And then last point before I finish up, point number 5, Omni-Channel impact. Across brands doing at least 25% of their business outside of D2C, 32% of Meta's impact went toward non-D2C channels. This is Amazon and retail. So we're seeing a significant impact in terms of spending on Meta, driving lift in Amazon and in retail. So those are the 5 points I'd say, that really, I think, hammer home that like this channel works. No matter what you do inside of the ad account, this is a significant driver to all of our business.
Yeah, look, Meta's a hell of a drug. You're telling me it hits harder, lasts longer, acts faster than every other ad platform out there. So also, water's wet. There's a lot of Meta hate, and I've been at the center of some of it, being like, oh my God, like it's just stealing sales. It's circling the bottom of the funnel. But that's also with me spending $50 million a year inside of Meta. Like it's an amazing platform for a reason. It's a duopoly in America for a reason.
So the way that I understand what you're saying here is like Meta really works. Everybody's using it, that it hits bottom of funnel. And so with some things, you don't want to draw a conclusion too early if it's working or not, but it should be working almost immediately if you're trying it on Meta, and that it's underreporting. But the reason why it's underreporting is a lot of times these sales are popping up in places like Target or Amazon, that are kind of outside of the attribution, the cookies and stuff that Meta is using to drive its in-platform reporting. Is that a good summary?
Well, actually, this stat that I shared doesn't include Omni-Channel. So if you're just looking at D2C, it's underreporting. It's just underreporting D2C if you're on a click-based attribution, because...
So they're way underreporting impact is what you're saying. Like whatever you have an in-platform, especially if you're in other channels, that it's significant, like maybe 50% more. Am I reading that right? Like maybe 50% of the, you're underreporting, or you're only getting 2/3 of the performance is showing up in platform as what's happening across maybe all of your channels?
Yeah, it looks like about 50% there, right? Because there's about 1/3 of the impact, 33% happening on Omni, and about 15% underreporting. So it's probably close to, underreported by 50% if you're Omni.
Well, Sean, I think you've said this before, but like Facebook privately will tell anybody who will listen, if you could see all the things that we see, you would know we're driving even more impact than we can report on. And these numbers would certainly back that up.
Oh, dude. And like Meta has now embraced, dude, we'll measure it any way you want. Like you could tell if someone's really confident and really good, where they're like, pick any game, I'll beat you at it. You know what I mean? They're like, we'll do MTA if you want, we'll do MMM, we'll do holdout, we'll do, you name the test. Meta's like, yeah, we'll win at it. And it's the best ad platform for a reason, right? Like, we'll talk about display networks for a second. I already on Criteo. I think we can do that because they're not a company anymore. There's so much click fraud that happens there, right? There's all of these bots out there in the world, and Meta has done a great job keeping that out of their platform, making sure you get good, honest clicks going in.
This is kind of unrelated, but interestingly it's not unrelated. It's just a different platform. On Amazon, there's actually a report you can run now, which is basically fraudulent clicks. And it's not insignificant. It was something like 20%, 23% of our advertising clicks Amazon system was deeming to be fraudulent and not charging us for. You can actually go and pull this data at this point. But to your point, Sean, it's like, gosh, if 1 out of every 5 clicks, 1 out of every 4 clicks is fraudulent, that's going to move your numbers around a ton.
Sean, Criteo is trying to make a comeback. I've been talking. They want to be tested against Haus. So if you want to be a part of that pilot program, let me know.
Tell them we'll give them a free chance to get roasted or praised on the operators if they give us $50,000 ad credits to test.
And 10,000 for all listeners. So listeners, I'm looking out for you guys.
There you go.
I think the none of this surprised me a ton, but I think the Omni-Channel impact is probably larger than I would have thought. That's a pretty huge impact, and I think anyone who has an Omni-Channel presence, even are we including Amazon in that, Olivia?
Yep, Amazon and retail.
I mean, that should fundamentally change how you set your ROAS targets.
Yep,
based on 32% lift elsewhere.
Well, Cody, this is exactly what we're in the middle of right now. Is that it? And we've known that people shuttle. So, do you guys remember? I don't know. Maybe I'm really dating myself, but before Alexa was kind of like Amazon Siri, Alexa was a website that you could go to and look at traffic. Oh my gosh, Alexa just started talking to me in my house. But you could go to look at kind of traffic rankings and like web traffic stuff. I don't know what the go-to is now, but we used to look at this a lot in my previous job. But anyway, the most interesting thing that they could do is you could pull a report, which here's all the most commonly viewed websites right before somebody comes to this website, and here are the most common places they go after this website. And it was really fascinating to see. And we don't have a tool like that right now. Maybe there's one that exists, and I just don't know about it. But what we know pretty much for a fact is that our customers, there's a lot of 1-2 where it's like I'm on simplemodern.com, and then the very next place I go is amazon.com, or I'm on amazon.com, and the very next place I go is simplemodern.com. And we've known it by watching sales data, but then as we started to get into the Haus testing, it's certainly showing up. And I think that the most interesting thing, and I don't know, Olivia, if you can share any principles here, but this would be really helpful. When does that omni-channel presence, when do you see bigger percentages and when do you see smaller percentages? Do you know anything that you can share with the group about that?
We have data on which channels drive outsized impact to Omni, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's the view-based channels tend to have outsized impact because there's nothing to click on. So you're just going to go buy at your kind of preferred channel of choice. But in terms of halo effects, like the more you're selling in Amazon and retail, the more you're going to see in terms of halo effect. It's pretty, like you kind of see it here. You need to be really doing volume in Amazon or retail in order to see that impact. And I would say that, you know, sometimes brands like get excited about this too early. Like they think they're going to find a bunch of impact on Amazon and retail, like, but they're only doing 5% of their business there. So it's kind of like a math thing, right? There's just like, you're not going to see that if you're only doing, you know, a fraction of your, an immaterial percentage of your business is Omni.
So to press you a little bit on that, is your perspective that what happens is a lot of this, I saw this on YouTube and then I typed in my browser, Amazon.com, and searched for it? Or is it more the advertising is just kind of planting brands in front of people, and then through serendipity or whatever, I'm walking through the aisles of Target and I see that product and I'm just more likely to pick it up off the shelf now because I happened to see that YouTube video last night?
Your guess is as good as mine. I think it's probably both, like a little bit of both. That's what we see, and we see more lagged effects. So I think that kind of supports both scenarios there, where it's either they're not clicking, but they're going and they're looking, or they're you know, when they shop, it's top of mind. So yeah, I don't. Your guess is as good as mine there.
Yeah, and Olivia's not a behavior scientist; she's a data scientist. She's just bringing the data for us. So I don't know why people shop like that. It's crazy to me too, Mike. Also, Mike, if you want a good website that tells you where where similar websites to you and where the traffic goes, SimilarWeb basically kind of open source that. So there's a free SimilarWeb plan that will tell you a bunch of stuff. Good tip.
Do you use that very often, Sean? And if so, how do you use stuff like that?
Yeah, we mostly use it for competitor tracking, right? Or if we are looking to do like any sort of, we don't do these anymore really, but like content sponsorships on websites, right? There was a company, I can't remember what their name. It was started by this girl, Lee, who I used to work with at Hawk Media. And it was like, their whole thing was just like, it was a content website for D2C brands to whitelist through.
Quality Edit?
Quality edit. That's
Yep.
totally it. Yeah. So if I wanted to like see if quality edit's going to be a good fit or whatever, we would go on SimilarWeb and check that out. But dude, Olivia, great poll, dude. You're on top of it. You're in the D2C ecosystem.
Yeah, she's cool. She's cool. The Omni piece, like this is, I think, part of the reason Meta likes us and you hear about us a lot in Disruptors is that when you complete that picture with Omni-Channel impact, it does change the calculus in terms of how you're thinking about investing. You know, like you think you're getting a 0.6 IROAS, you're probably getting a 1. And now you're like, oh, well, at this efficiency, I should maybe think about increasing my budget. So I think this is really important, and I don't want to understate it.
Yeah, and some more data from Insider Ridge. We sell on Amazon. Our Amazon tacos, so total account ROAS, right? Total account spend on Amazon is like 8% or something, right? Now, we have a multi-million-dollar per month Amazon business. Do you think I'm that good at Amazon ads where I'm getting a 12 to 15x MER? Or do you think all those people are coming from my Facebook ads? Without a doubt, they're coming from my Facebook ads. I don't even need a holdout test to tell me that, right? But then we can actually, if we increase spend on podcasts, does that go up? That's why we actually do one of those holdout tests. But without a doubt, Meta ads drive performance everywhere. I mean, nobody can say anything about that nowadays.
Jason, what do you like about Ceres? You were gone for the past week in Italy. Were you checking Ceres dashboards?
I wasn't checking anything in Italy, but I will say this, like whenever anyone on my teams, like growth team or anywhere else, like sends me data anymore, it's likely coming out of Ceres. And every once in a while, I'll get something from them and it looks really slick. And I'm like, where'd you get that? Is that Ceres? And like, yeah. And I always feel really good about our investment. I do get a daily email of some metrics out of Ceres that comes through. But one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is AI. I mean, duh, right? Everyone is, duh. But like, I finally woke up a few weeks ago. I was like, I got to get serious about this. And I was actually talking to the Ceres guys, and they launched the next generation AI powered stuff in their platform, which I'm excited about. It's Ceres IQ. It's invite only right now. If you mention Operators Podcast, you can probably get access, hopefully. But the next level of all of this is first with AI, you need to have all of your data somewhere. I mean, it's going to be really messy to just drop stuff into different AI platforms. If you have your data in one place, and then you can really leverage AI. So the way I've thought about our investment in Ceres Analytics was getting all of our data in one place, understanding our customers better, understanding our marketing metrics better, but then being able to layer AI on top of that is, I think, the really exciting next level here.
You brought up bringing in Costco, Amazon, and Shopify. The ability to have all sales channels with the same data is so important. If you're listening to this and you sell on Amazon, you know how painful that platform is. You have to wait like a couple extra days to pull your reports. Like the SKUs aren't the same as the rest of your SKUs. Like the titles are different. So like to get actually like clean data to compare, it's very manual. Using Ceres Analytics, they matched all that up for us. So like they cleaned all that data. So I could actually look at what is the true margin profile of an Amazon sale. What's Amazon return rate? What's Amazon customer frequency? Like all the type of data compared to our .com and have like a comprehensive overview. And now with their new AI tool, I don't have to look at it. I could just ask it. It could just tell me cool questions. So doing that across our 5 Shopify stores as well. We have an EU Shopify store. So now I can compare EU Ring customer cohorts versus Canadian Ring customer cohorts versus Amazon Ring customer cohorts. So now we're getting to different functions of my business across different channels, different categories, and actually looking at the margin, the repeat rate, and like, is it worth investing in these different things? So if your business starts to feel like a spider web and just like keeps going and going and going, it's just like this nonstop proliferation of different channels, maybe it's time to check something out like Ceres Analytics.
I remember, Sean, at the very beginning, this is a very typical Sean thing. Sean was like, what is this? Why do I need this? Right. And I'm actually really happy that you come to understand like how important having a data warehouse is and what it does for managing your business, because you were not like a true believer from the beginning.
No, I was angry when you told me I needed to pay for something new, but Jason was right. He convinced me. He got me on board. I'm using it. So a rare Jason W. So thank you,
Exactly.
Jason. I'm
Very rare.
I'm on Saris Analytics. He's on Saris Analytics. Proud sponsor of the Operators Podcast. So if you want a data warehouse and you want an AI-powered data warehouse, tell Saris about the Saris IQ feature, and then you crave it. You're demanding you get access to it. So, all right, guys. Talk to you later.
I'm going to move on to the fun stuff. This is the media slide. This is actually, I think, the most interesting part of the study around Advantage Plus. So Cody mentioned up top that when we were talking through key terms, there's Advantage Plus. This is their AI product. Give us a budget, give us some assets, and we'll do the rest. And then there's the manual campaigns, the old way, the legacy. I don't know what we call it these days, but it's like the old way we all know, Meta. And just fun fact, like when I was first starting on Facebook ads at Netflix, we had, I mean, the whole value proposition for our approach was like, we're going to personalize these ads based on who is most likely to sign up for any given title. And we would cherry pick like the most specific audience segments for, you know, the Marvel fans are very different from the Full House fans. And so we would get really quite specific with our targeting. When we followed Meta's kind of advice and started testing this in terms of, all right, we're going to remove all those audience segments. We're going to go broad, optimize to conversions. We call this like unfettered targeting. This was very controversial. Like this was probably half of my job at some point at Netflix was educating the organization on this decision that we were making. And like one of my fondest memories is when I was working with Ashton Kutcher on his TV show, The Ranch. And I had to explain to him that we weren't doing any targeting for this like middle America sitcom. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, why, you know, this is not Stranger Things here. And so I had to kind of like give the meta pitch of like, hey, they can find audiences better than you can. But yeah, so we compared Advantage Plus to like, you know, these more manual campaigns where you have more levers. This is quite interesting. I think there's a lot of nuance here. Advantage Plus only beats manual, the legacy approach, 42% of the time, which means that manual is actually winning more than Advantage Plus. I didn't necessarily want this to be true because I think this complicates the lives of marketers of like, I would love to come on this podcast and just say like, just relinquish control, do other things, focus on other areas of the business. Meta's got this. They're close. This is close. It's not there yet in terms of parity, but you know, they're again, early innings for them still, like they're going to improve. And I'm curious to hear what you all think about this. 12% lower iROAS for Advantage Plus at 18% lower daily spend. So even at a lower spend level, iROAS is not, it's not at parity with manual campaigns. But again, 12% is not much. So I'll pause there. Like, I'm curious, like how you guys think about this in terms of whether it makes you say, 12% is not that much and our team could do other things. Or if you're like, oh no, this is meaningful and I'm going to resist the AI product for until they get to parity.
AFC loses to boomer buying. I'm going to call it boomer buying, right? Like the way we used to do ad buying. Quick aside, when Cambridge Analytica happened, I remember being like, what's everyone freaking out about? I'm like that like when the news broke, it was like 2016 or whatever. I'm like, that's how Meta's built. It like you can go in there, you can click the people you want to target, right? So I think us marketers were maybe, you know, too bought into like violating personal identity freedoms or whatever, being like, oh yeah, I want to target that specific person. But anyway, boomer buying is beating ASC. You know, you probably just made everyone really upset because one of the worst things about Facebook ad buying is like you keep touching it because you feel like you can make an impact, right? Like, oh, I'm going to tweak this audience. Oh, I'm going to tweak this thing. And like, it's like never perfect because it can't be perfect, right? Like you can't even approach being perfect because it's such a big, like ever moving target with all these other factors. But this kind of proves that those people are, you know, even if they're crazy, that they're kind of right. Cody, is that your day-to-day life?
I don't know. I'm not in the ad accounts anymore. Take that, Taylor Holiday.
I mean, this, like what I take away is that their algorithm is so good. That's why this is a problem, right? Like it's so good at identifying intent that it becomes like a question in terms of incrementality. And that's the tension here is, when you've built the best conversion optimization engine in the world, you're going to deliver to some people who are going to buy anyway. And it's an interesting dilemma. But the other points I'll just run through real quick is Advantage Plus delivers less in terms of lagged effect. So effect is more immediate here. Only 17% of the lift comes in the post-treatment window versus 32% for boomer buying, as Sean would say it, for the manual approach. Advantage Plus is over-reporting incrementality slightly relative to manual. So they're over-reporting by about 12 percentage points on average relative to manual. And then there are some points that I would say are neutral to positive for Advantage Plus, which is that it actually is delivering a higher new customer share. So slightly higher, 5% flat in terms of retargeting. So they're not over-delivering to retargeting, which is something, Cody, I think you'll probably be interested in talking about that. Comparable omni-channel impact. And I'm going to save this last point for its own discussion because I think this might be one of the more interesting learnings. But yeah, it's like when I look at this data, I'm like, oh my gosh, their conversion optimization is so good that it actually is something you need to keep an eye on in terms of incrementality.
Yeah, Mike, you've heard us talk about this a million times, right? Me and Matt debating back and forth if it's just circling the drain, right? If you build a money machine that's only designed to find you more money, it'll go, whoever's the easiest transaction, it'll go there.
What Meta's being paid to do is to go get people that click the link and buy something. Like that's like, hey, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is just get me as many people that click this link and then go and buy the thing. And what you're really saying, Olivia, I mean, incrementality is, especially in the omni-channel incrementality, that's like people not doing exactly the expressed stated behavior of the advertiser. It's still good for the brand, but it's like, it's maybe not shocking that Meta's product is going to be even better at getting that in front of that particular type of buyer, the person that's ready to click and buy, on your website or wherever it is you're directing them right then.
Yeah. And Olivia, you said this only matters until it doesn't. Meta's going to take away boomer buying. And there's a rumor that it's already gone. Cody, do you want to talk about that like all campaigns are just Advantage Plus now?
I think that's true. Olivia, did you get any confirmation whether or not that's true? I think in our account, I feel like I've seen that.
I don't have confirmation. The comms are a bit unclear of like, they're saying you can still have the manual controls for now. There hasn't been any comms around like, oh no. You can't.
In new campaigns?
I'm not sure.
I think it's fair to say, Sean, that what you're saying, I mean, it's like, at some point, clue in to the way this thing goes. Like, I mean, This is definitely going to go away. I mean, partially, I bet the technical complexity of being able to give this like Burger King, have it your way, boomer buying is just a real pain in the butt for Meta. And you even wonder if what's going on is they're like, sure, tell us everything you want. Okay, yep. And then they just like, here, we're going to give you to the AI. It's actually like one of my favorite stories is that a bunch of crosswalks, the button you hit that's supposed to like tell it, hey, I'm waiting. A bunch of those and a bunch of door close buttons on elevators, they're not actually hooked up to anything. It's like a social thing. They give it to you so you feel like you're in control and you feel better, but like they don't actually do anything. And if whether or not they take away the interface, I think that's pretty much what's going on here.
Yeah. And to explain, a lot of that data is purchased via third parties, right? So Apple was sharing user data back to Meta, and that it caused a big fight. We all remember that, iOS 14. But other people sell data, right? So your credit card data gets bundled and sold like 1 million times, right? And that's how they build the manual targeting aspect. And Meta wants to go to a world where their internal AI system is predicting that for you with probably no or less data going into it, right? They're going to spend less money on data processing, less money on third-party data, and do more of that internally with AI. So that's why they don't want to support it anymore. It's expensive to support, right?
Well, and I think it's probably true that what they would probably argue to kind of, be their spokesperson in this situation is that like, you thinking that you can outthink its AI by taking like 6 demographic, filters and adding them in there is just laughable. Like these AI systems are using like, I don't even know how many dimensions, they're using dimensions that we don't even know exist, right? They're like playing 8D chess. And so like their ability to go and target people is just going to be superior to anything that we could do through boomer buying, is my guess. Like they'd probably say, hey, 99% of the time when you do boomer buying versus the AI driven model, you're going to get worse performance. So why even offer that to people if the normative outcome is that they're going to do worse?
But Olivia has the data over the last 18 months. Us, hardworking media buyers were John Henry. We were taking down the locomotive. We were killing it. But I just think it's like that advantage goes smaller and smaller every single month. Then eventually it's like PMAX. You can't do manual stuff anymore.
Yeah, Mike, on the point about the elevator button and just, giving marketers the feeling of control. We see this often as in terms of of MMM. We're launching an MMM kind of built on the foundation of experiment data. And our customers want to send us so many inputs and so many covariates that we can use to kind of build their model. And what we find is that like that additional data doesn't really help much, but it does give the feeling of like, hey, like I am making this model better. And I imagine that's how Meta feels as well, as like, hey, you can give me these, these signals from all these different places, but we know what works.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would love it if Meta did, and they never will. And so it doesn't matter, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is I think it would be incredibly helpful to marketers to understand what are the dimensions that the AI is looking at, because that can inform a lot of other things that we do in other areas of the business, from everything from product development to how we run our social accounts and messaging, the type of creative that you're building. And so that's one thing that's been unfortunate about the move to AI, is that it's become just this black box where it's like, you even ask some of the people inside these companies and they're like, yeah, we don't know how it works. And I think that there needs to be an increased level of data flow back there. I'm for sure on board with the idea that I'm not going to be able to outsmart the AI in terms of telling it how to target people. But if it's never telling me what it's doing at all, that's unhelpful as well. What we need a system where part of the value add that Meta and Google, other people are offering is like, yeah, you just tell us what to do. We're going to go do it. And then we're going to come back to you and give you a report on what was really effective, how we went and found those people, or the types of things that we looked for that you should be, aware of as a brand.
Dude, I would love to see that. And I wish that, and we know they're listening. This gets passed around Meta internally. So please.
Well, my question is, I don't understand why they wouldn't. I mean, it's a value add. And usually when you're adding value add consultative type services, you can pad your margins with it. So maybe there you go. There's your business idea of how to make the next, whatever $1 trillion Meta. If you can give us data about what your systems are doing and why they're so good, there's obviously like proprietary pieces to that, but like there's a bunch of non-proprietary stuff that would really help us as a brand.
Dude, if we're just pitching Meta business ideas, I've pitched them this and they didn't want to hear about it. Charge every ad account $5 per user they add. Okay. Call it an insurance fee, like security fee, whatever. Dude, I did the math one time and it's like $800 million in incremental revenue.
That's so interesting because like when we've worked with club channel like Sam's Club and Costco, like one of their big things is like you have to pay for the membership. And I kind of pitched one of the clubs on like, why don't you give the people the ability to come in and shop the deals? Because a lot of people don't want to buy the membership until they see, the prices. And it's just like a sacred cow. It's like, we can't give up the membership fee. And then what you're pitching is the opposite, that it's like a membership fee. And it's a pretty good business model. Ask Costco.
Yeah. But, selling ads, the best model on earth. So, all right, Olivia, what's this next point?
Well, they used to give us a lot more audience insights pre-Cambridge Analytica. Like I don't know if you guys remember, like there used to be an audience insights tab and we used to use that in a lot of our planning in terms of like marketing strategy, and now it's all gone. So I would like to see that too. I would like to see them be more transparent with this model and what's feeding it, but we can dream.
Okay, one of my hottest takes is that as a marketer working in 2016, I was like, Cambridge Analytica just wasn't that big of a deal. Now, if you don't work in marketing, I get it. You freaked out. But as a marketer, I'm like, yeah, that's how I was selling wallets.
I think everybody's accepted that was just a tempest in a tea kettle kind of moment, and that people were just pissed off and wanted to be able to. I mean, I just think what it is a lot of people saw an outcome that just did not compute for them, and they wanted to be able to blame it on something. And so that was like the thing. It's like, somehow you just manipulated a bunch of people into thinking and behaving in a way that they didn't really want to behave. And there's really no evidence at all that that was what happened there.
There's so much spent on political ads, okay? Literally $100 billion or whatever. It's way less than that, but like it's $5 billion a presidential cycle. But no, Facebook was the bad guy. It's like, come on, guys, what the f- are you talking about? Let us sell wallets.
That was the moment I learned that, like, I was an expert at this thing, and I was reading the story in the New York Times, and I was like, what else might they be wrong about if they are like getting the story this wrong? So the moment I started questioning things, honestly. But not to get political, I want to hear Cody's thoughts. I'll give this last point. I think this one's fascinating, and then I kind of want to hear what Cody reacts to in terms of the slide and the Advantage Plus learnings. But I've had this hypothesis. I've obviously, I used to kind of know every test that every customer was running for a period of time, and I noticed this happening where when a customer was either all in on ASC or all in on manual, they were getting better results. And I was like, I have this hypothesis that like the hedging of like doing a little bit of ASC and a little bit of manual is not actually working. And we saw that play out in the data here. So a heavy up strategy where you're like either all in on one or heavier on one, then 50-50, outperformed. So this also complicates our lives a bit because it's like, well, if you're not sure about ASC and manual, just split the difference and go 50-50. That's not working as well. It is, and this is where I think the learning is you need to test this for your business and figure out what's right for you.
I think overall it's a little bit concerning because obviously whether it's now or in the future, we will have no choice. So it's not great that the thing that we're being forced into is less effective than the old version that we had. There might be, other factors or variables, or maybe they will crack it. I think your take on it being less incremental because it's so good at finding intent is a very interesting one and very, very, very generous to Meta. We'll see if that's what it is or not. But yeah, the word out on the street is that, ASC, just like Sean says, like circles a wagon and just doesn't do a great job finding new people. And something has either broken or just changed about the algorithm, how it will go after the same people. And it doesn't mean always existing customers. It might just mean prospects, and it's harder to get reached. It's kind of bundled this like retargeting and prospecting strategy. And it's definitely just what most people are noticing anecdotally or, from the data in their brands. So I do think it is something that will have to be improved, and Meta will have to. That's not to get ahead and I guess spoil it, but some of the strategies that you're going to talk about later on, I believe that's partly why, where there are now like new best practices of strategies to help try to find some new people. It's absolutely the thing that we are struggling with right now. We are spending more money year over year and we're reaching less people. And that's not the goal. It's not what you want to do. And I think just having ASC is a challenge that I do wonder if that's why like IA, like incremental attribution that they're testing and talking about and have rolled into GA now is something that is an attempt to solve this, because maybe they know that is a negative case of their algorithm being so good. We'll see. I do think they're going to learn this, and hopefully they're listening. Like Sean said, I'm sure they are, but find ways to help us explore some new audiences rather than just going after the same amount of them.
Olivia, I got a question for you. So you have the data for 18 months. Did it get better over time or did it get worse over time?
I expected that question, and I don't have an answer to that. We haven't cut it in that way yet, but that'll have to be a follow-up, right? Is because Sean, I know your theory is like 2024 Meta sucked. I kind of want to see if incrementality has gotten better since then. I don't have it.
Okay, guys, because like the whole rollout of Andromeda really happened in January of this year, and what I could see is that ASC was totally like 50% worse than manual bidding up until this year, and now it's beating it. That'd be my guess. So we'll don't touch your ad account until we get the second episode out, guys.
Okay, it's no secret that margins are getting squeezed and profitability is a challenge for brands in 2025. Not a secret. That is where Northbeam's profitability benchmarks come in. It's a new feature. You could check it out. This is a tool from Northbeam that tells you the exact targets that you need to hit to get to profit inside of Northbeam. So no more guessing, no more month-end financial surprises. Hitting these targets helps you ensure that your ad campaigns are actually driving the right behaviors to make your business profitable. That is wonderful. The brands that track this stuff probably already do in Google Sheets. I know I do. I'm going to be checking out this Northbeam new feature. And Northbeam is a big level up from this. And here's what sets kind of what I have seen. Here's what sets profitability benchmarks apart. So instantly you get to quantify your goals into clear benchmarks. Every ad gets measured against those targets right inside of Northbeam. That's kind of cool, actually. And you see, and you can kind of at a glance see which ads are doing well, which needs to go against profitability benchmarks, not just ROAS or whatever else you're using right now. You scale up the winners, you cut the losers, you know the drill. It is hard to argue that this is not great for brands. Profitability benchmarks from Northbeam is like having a speedometer in all your channels, campaigns, ads. You can kind of see everything at a glance against profitability, not something else. So stop leaving money on the table, fuel your creative performance, make every ad dollar count in every channel, hold them all to the same standard. If you want to reach out to Northbeam, just let them know the operator sent you and they will take good care of you.
Okay, next slide. Olivia, what are we talking about?
Okay, Cody kind of previewed this, but we dug into this idea of, all right, if the hypothesis here is that ASC is really good at identifying intent, how do we actually use Meta as a prospecting tool? How do we introduce our brand to new audiences who might not be in market to buy? That's the stated goal from Cody is I need to introduce this brand to new people. We are seeing a huge rise in terms of mid-funnel testing. We'll talk a little bit about mid-funnel, a little bit about upper funnel. Mid-funnel, when I say mid-funnel, we define it as a conversion objective that is not a purchase. So this is like an event on site, like, view content or PDP visit or add to cart, quiz complete. We're seeing a huge rise in this test, I think, to solve the point on the previous slide, which is around how do we go a bit shallower in terms of the funnel, but not totally upper funnel. So mid-funnel testing has increased 121% in frequency across the customer base. And it's not far off in terms of performance. So mid-funnel drives just 14% lower D2C ROAS than purchase optimization. This is the catch, 85% less spend. So brands are taking like 15% of what they're spending on purchase objectives. They're optimizing to a shallower KPI, and it's doing really well. Now, the question, of course, is like, can that scale? And I don't think we should ever hold this media to the same standard in terms of IROAS. Like, I'm fine with 14% lower. Of course, if it's 4x less efficient, that doesn't seem like that's something you could make work, even if you assume that there are lagged effects. But 14% is not bad. So
Can I make a really nuanced point there?
Yeah.
The upper funnel spend is probably a scale strategy. So it's probably on top of business as usual purchase spend. So it's not like apples to apples. Where like when you're testing Meta like purchase, you're testing my guess is a account wide holdout where you're testing almost like the 0 to, let's call them 50K, whatever they're spending. And then when you're testing a mid funnel, you're probably testing like that spend or maybe most of that spend as purchase with like 10% or whatever it is on top of that, most likely. And so that I'm guessing there's no true holdout. Like everybody is getting Meta conversion spend and then that as part of the holdout. Am I correct on that for the most common setup?
I need to check on that. I think, some brands actually just add it on top of everything they're doing, and others will like restructure the account in the way where this is like, it's its own cell, and they account for the fact that this is, it's not just on top, but they want to see it like alongside their purchase optimization campaigns in two different cells.
Okay, cool. Yeah, anytime like we've tested something like that, like there was never any like true sandbox or true Meta holdout. So like comparing like the customer incremental was like slightly elevated because they were getting the regular Meta spend as well. But
yeah, that's a good point. So Cody's getting into like a test design thing where if you're just adding this on top of everything, you can't expect it to be super efficient because the marginal efficiency of those like last dollars into Meta are, you're holding them to a very high standard. So a lot of brands will like the question here is, should you carve out some of your purchase optimized media and optimize that to mid or upper funnel? And we're seeing that that's actually been working pretty well. The question is, how much?
You can't have wine unless you smash a couple grapes, and you can't have grapes unless you grow them, right? So what I'm trying to say by that is a lot of us, most accounts, 70% of listeners are just running ASC campaigns right now, right? And it's very hard to scale that and keep incrementality high, right? If you're spending $1 million today, you're going to spend $2 million next month, and you want more incrementality on that on ASE, it's very hard to do. It's just going to circle the bottom of the drain. You might have to grow some more grapes, right? So that's moving to a mid funnel, moving to an upper funnel. And those people will move down into ASE, right? It is a funnel. They will move down, and that'll help increase overall account incrementality. So when we're saying that mid funnel is 14% worse, it is worse, but think about it in 3 dimensions, that like it is what makes the second layer actually as incremental as possible. So that's the nuance I read from this.
Yeah, there's not anything to harvest at the bottom of the funnel if you're not doing some cultivation at the higher levels of the funnel. And then all of a sudden your lower funnel stuff isn't producing the volume or the kind of ROAS that you want, and you're wondering why, and it's because you're not doing any cultivating further up the funnel.
Dude, yeah. If you want that wine, you have to grow those grapes. So
Yeah, I often push back on brands who say, I want to go top of funnel, I want to create demand, and then they go straight to TV. I remind them that, hey, Meta is, you can reach more people on Meta than any other platform out there. So, it's kind of an afterthought in terms of this idea of going upper funnel, and we're seeing that I'd say like the mindset start to shift.
yeah, dude, and like we all know that like a TV North Beam ROAS will be 0.1 or whatever, but then you see that same 0.1 on Meta reach campaigns, and you're like, this is the worst thing ever, right? So I think a lot of it is just bias built in. So you can reach anybody anywhere if you try hard enough.
And Sean, you guys have had a lot of success with these like mid funnel PDP optimization, right? Like they're holding up. They're hanging in terms of even like North Beam performance too.
Oh yeah, I mean, you said you've seen 121% increase, and that's because Ridge said we like doing it. So you've seen about 8 million people copy us on that. We're spending, I mean, some months 30, some months 40% of our budgets are going to these mid-funnel objectives. And when we measure it, it's the most incremental thing in our account, and they look just as good on North Beam.
So you're actually seeing like the same, because this is the most interesting part of this, is that you're saying, Olivia, that even though it's not built for purchase optimization, it's mid-funnel, that you're seeing it perform pretty comparably to purchase optimization. But then on the kind of incrementality and omni-channel effects, they're way bigger because you're kind of getting outside of the very, very bottom of the funnel. Is that an accurate way of saying it?
Yep. This is on the slide here. I'll just voice over that mid-funnel is driving better omni-channel halo effects. So 70% impact on omni-channel versus just 46% for lower funnel, and delayed effects. So 44% of that lift is happening in the post-treatment window for mid-funnel versus 26% for lower funnel. So it is hanging in there. The incrementality is comparable. And if you account for omni-channel and in post-treatment window, it's very close. Actually, Cody was like the originator of the mid-funnel test. I often say, like, you can run amazing tests and answer really big business questions if you're patient and you run a long experiment. And Cody ran it must have been like a 4-month test that ran where he was just doing mid-funnel, and he ran it through Black Friday, Cyber Monday to see how it was like 3 months before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, he started spending on this, and actually had the patience to see that through November to see how all those folks converted when the time came for the sale.
We're also launching this week. We're launching 20% of our account on mid-funnel. We had what I believe was the best episode of Marketing Operators that's going to drop tomorrow. Me and marketing dweeb Connor talking all about meta testing. So great timing. But yeah, I know Rich has seen success with it, but we're struggling with this ASC reach thing. And so definitely very excited to test that again.
Dude, Connor's going to shoot me in the face if that's the nickname that sticks. So that's awesome. Yeah, well, look, Cody's a patient guy. That's why he's the youngest, most handsome CEO of a beauty brand of all time. I mean, this guy's crushing the game. He's so patient.
There's patience, and one of my favorite tests is when we ask people when they're coming in, like, how much of your business is driven by paid? Nobody really knows. And I'm like, you can answer that question. Like, if you put all of your media in an all-up test and run a holdout, like a 5% holdout on everything you're doing, we can answer that question for you. And nobody wants to do it. I don't know. They don't have it's not very actionable, but I think it's like such a cool test. We've done it a few times.
Yeah, so Connor's pitched it on me, and it's like, I just don't think we have the guts. It's like to choose.
Do you really want to know the answer? That's probably the problem, Olivia, is that for one reason or another, people don't want to actually know that number.
So, Olivia, what do you see on upper funnel versus mid funnel, and when like would you advise somebody to think about one versus the other, or is there a stance on that?
Yep. So for listeners, we just covered mid funnel. That's the non-purchase conversion objectives. Then there's upper funnel. This is like true upper funnel reach and awareness objectives on Meta. These are underreported significantly by Meta, 4.35x incrementality factor. So what Meta is reporting in terms of ROAS, we're seeing about 4x that in terms of incrementality. So significant underreporting happening here. Much better omni-channel effects, as you might expect. Much better latency in terms of post-treatment window lift. I need to pull up the stat that it's like if mid-funnel is 14% worse than purchase, it's like 26%, I believe, in terms of, so it's mid-funnel is a little bit worse in terms of efficiency, and upper funnel is like, a little bit worse than that in terms of performance. But you have to remember why you're doing this. Like you shouldn't expect it to be this like it parity in terms of efficiency with lower funnel. And Cody, you've been pushing us there in terms of, well, like, then what should our goal be? And I don't have a great answer to that, but you need to be patient, and you need to be willing to kind of carve off some of the budget that you can't hold to the exact same IROAS goals as your lower funnel.
So like when, and honestly, I've been asking myself the same thing, but like as we are trying to, improve our meta performance and reach new people, we have a roadmap where we're going to test these mid funnel. So we're going view content with 10% of our spend at the same time, quiz complete 10. That's what we landed on today. But we're also probably going to test, depending on how that goes, like back to like a reach campaign, which we ran 3 tests on and we've had some success with. But like, when should brands think about this versus reach? Or do you think if you're just on purchase, like start lower and don't go straight to the top if you haven't tested a mid-funnel event?
I would first test your lower funnel. Like, a lot of brands don't even need to go here yet. So I would say, like, this is not a problem unless it's a problem. Like, test your lower funnel, and then if you, as Sean mentioned, like, they were running into incrementality problems. You guys have probably been spending on Meta for a decade. Hard to reach new people. If you're not happy with your rolling reach, like you mentioned, Cody, that's worth a test. And then this is a journey, I would say. Like, the mid funnel, upper funnel is not like just light it up and you'll see immediate success. It's kind of like this thing where you have to try and tinker with it in terms of the right events that work for your business, and whether you, is it actually not that much better to optimize to an add to cart? Are you not doing the thing you're trying to do by introducing the brand to new audiences by just going like a little bit shallower? Like, do you need to go all the way up funnel in terms of reach? This is where I'd say, like, you kind of need to test that for you in your own business.
Okay, I've spent $250 million on Meta. Okay, $250 million in a decade. I still don't run reach campaigns. So I'm gonna, some quick math for everybody. 0 times 4.35 is still 0. Okay, that's the incrementality factor. Mid funnel, I'm having great results. So if you've spent $250 million on Meta ads and you're still just running ASE, it's probably time to test mid funnel. If you're probably around 100 million in lifetime spend, maybe just get on Haus and just test if ASE is working, and then you can work your way up. But I think once you cross, I don't even think Jason is running upper funnel reach campaigns yet. So I think you got a long way to go.
That's because it's all being run by corporations that don't know what's going on.
Yeah, dude. McDonald's has the snack wraps they want you to know about. They're going to run reach campaigns.
There's a reason I put on this slide that mid funnel is seeing like a boom. We're seeing 121% increase. I think demand for upper funnel is waning, but it's not. It's honestly, Sean, it's not as bad as you say. But But yes, it's probably a big leap to go there.
Okay, so 0.001 times 4.35. You could do that math yourself.
Sean, I've spent up to $250,000 on Meta. Am I ready for upper funnel?
yeah, Mike. I think you should just let ASC rip for you, bud.
That's actually my marketing strategy, guys. Here's how we're gonna fix this. We're gonna start at the top of the funnel and just work our way down.
Yeah. So we have to go to I've made you all wait for probably the most sought after stat in the industry right now on incremental attribution. So Meta rolled this out of beta a few months ago, I believe. And this is where you can tell Meta, I want to optimize for incremental customers. And they've got to give them credit here. They've trained an algorithm to go find incrementality because they were playing chess a few years ago and they have a bunch of conversion lift studies that brands have run. They have enough data to actually train a model on incrementality, which no other platform can say because no other platform's been really pushing incrementality. So they're many steps ahead just in terms of even being able to offer this. That said, we still have a ways to go. We're seeing very limited sample. We only have a handful of tests. This is a brand new feature, but just a 43% success rate in terms of incremental attribution, being more incremental than BAU or standard attribution. So I'm optimistic this will get better. I think this is just amazing that they had the foresight to run the test that got them the data that enabled them to do this, but not there yet.
I hear there's a new model. We've tested it once, like the old one. I hear there's a new model. Don't know if anything's going to get better, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and we said this earlier. It's like you have to have so much confidence to be like, you can measure me by any way and I'll still win. So yeah, hats off to Meta for embracing your mentality, embracing all this stuff. Also, Olivia, hats off to you for coming on the Operators podcast and trying to get us to learn something, because this is an hour and a half where I'm like, dude, I really hope people listen to the episode.
Listen, the 18 people that are still with us, congratulations. We're sending you a merit badge.
They're going to be so mad that they had to wait till an hour and a half in to get that stat. I'm sorry to the listeners.
Olivia, 5 hours in with all the fulfill ads. So this is going to be 5 hours into the content. Okay, hit the summary slide.
Hold on. Can I say one thing on incremental attribution? So the one thing, and I'm gonna get in my soapbox here. I saw like people tweeting about this, and they're like, "This is crazy update. Like, you can now see which amount of your conversions like wouldn't have happened anyways." And I'm like, "That's not what this is. Like, that's just incrementality in general. Like, this is actually being able to optimize towards that." And I think even at the Meta Summit, a lot of people like that just kind of missed that aspect. So, Sean, I agree with you like completely that it's actually so cool how Meta is embracing incrementality and leaning into it and say like, hey, come audit us. And no other channels are doing that. But this is beyond that. And again, I'm not saying it works. We haven't tested it in a while, but we're going to again. But this is actually being able to say, hey, take that data and then optimize my ads towards that and actually only spend on the impressions that you believe are going to be incremental. So and don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, this is their answer to the ASC issues, right? Of like, okay, if they're really good at identifying intent, incremental attribution comes in and kind of plucks out like, okay, who are the people who are going to come in anyway? And it's training a model on that.
Yeah, because that's the worst possible. Like if you assume bad motives on Meta's part, it's like, oh, you're going to use the power that you have to go and find all the people that already planned on coming and buy my stuff later today, and then just show them a bunch of ads so you can jump in front of that and get them to click their way into my website or something, and you can take credit for it. And so it is helpful to have a sense that that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to use their learning to actually just go and put their stamp on all these conversions that you'd already earned, but to actually grow the number of conversions you're getting.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I love the big blue beast. There's a reason why they're worth $2 trillion.
Well, here's my craziest thought. I know this is like probably totally out of place in everything we've talked about, and I'm probably too far out in the future by saying this. But, you know, Sean and I recently had a conversation. I think I asked him, he got to see a top secret product that does not involve a screen or clicking. And I am of the view that we're at peak screen right now and that we're at peak click. And that we're going to funnel people towards purchasing behaviors differently. in what's coming, the age to come. Now, I don't know how quickly we get there, but it could be quicker than we think. I mean, we're already seeing disintermediation by like the AI models, but imagine a world that's functioning more on vision or other things, on voice, and that takes out the click. And this stuff matters way more in that world than it does today. Like, I think we might right now at this point have the cleanest lines from intent, from like an action to purchase and being able to track it and attribute it, that we're going to get going forward. I think it's going to get much messier going forward. So being able to measure like how something spiderwebs out in a lot of the different channels and over time is going to become more important, not less. There you go. There's future Mike and his prediction.
That was deep. That was deep for 9:45 at night.
Yeah, for 9:45. Listen, if we go another hour, I'll start really getting into the bag.
Okay, Olivia, hit the summary slide.
Summary. I mean, I'm curious what you guys take away from this, but here are my takeaways, right? Like, oh man, I waited for an hour and a half in to also shout out Tyler Horner, who actually did this analysis on the Haus team. He's amazing. He's the one who took all these research questions and actually dug into them. It's been months of work. So shout out to Tyler. These are our takeaways. Meta's delivering, but you need to test the trade-offs here between automation and incrementality. And if you're investing a lot into Meta, this is what I was mentioning, it's worth it to understand what ASC is doing versus your BAU, because this could potentially be millions of dollars. So they're delivering, but you need to test this for yourself and make sure you understand what's working for your own business. Learn to think of Advantage Plus, the AI product, as the intent identifier. So this is probably most beneficial for brands with shorter conversion cycles, but we need to monitor. We need to understand, okay, how is this? How does this need to be augmented with upper funnel, mid funnel strategies that actually help you create demand and not just collect demand for folks in market? So it's my takeaways is, understand the role of each of these products in the mix and start testing.
Yeah, look, I mean, my takeaways are Meta works. Look, I would have zero money if Meta didn't work. Okay. Like Meta saved me from poverty. When Meta came out in 2014 or whatever with an ad product, it gave me everything that I have. I am living proof that it worked. It's cool that it continues to work and that you've tested 300 brands and whatever, $1 billion in spend to prove that it works. But so yeah, that makes me feel good. But it is changing, right? It's going to change every single week, every single month. And Cody's talking about testing stuff that he's already tested, right? And that's because this isn't a static organization, right? There's thousands of engineers whose full-time job is it to try to sell one or two more incremental wallets every single day, right? So they're changing the algorithm. You have to continue to test and change on top of it. And it is being okay with the rules always changing, right? Manual bidding is going to go away. Maybe you've built your career on being a manual bidding expert. The robots are coming for that job.
Polish off the resume if if that's what you're staking your career to.
But then once again, always be testing that. And then I'm an upper funnel believer, but I am not a top of funnel believer. So I think mid funnel is definitely good. Like, don't be running those reach campaigns, video view campaigns if you can help it. But here's my prediction. I've specifically asked Simon, who's a VP at Meta for this product, but it's Advantage Plus demand generation. So I call it Demand Plus. And so just this Advantage Plus campaign where 10 or 20% automatically goes to top of funnel stuff and your performance does look worse, but it'll be the only thing in your ad account. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's
Advantage Plus trademark. Sean Frank, he actually has already bought the domain. So Meta, if you do this, you're going to have to go through him. The one thought that I would add is that 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we've talked about this. You didn't necessarily have to be a PhD to like run Facebook ads and do pretty well because you could hit ROASs that were much higher than today. I think that that's pretty widely accepted that ROAS has gone down over time as competition and demand for this ad space has gone up. And that actually incrementally understanding more about your business and the returns allows you to dial in your bidding. So when you can hit a 5 ROAS without doing anything, you don't really need to think much about this stuff because you're not changing your bids a whole lot. When for us, like the difference between can we spend $10,000 or $20,000 depends on the way that we set our ROAS targets, and that depends heavily on incrementality, what's going on in other channels. This is actually really material. So that's my main takeaway, is that knowing your numbers and knowing the impact of your marketing can enable you to spend more in a highly competitive market, and that's a competitive advantage.
Hell yeah. Okay, Cody, final word on the pod.
January 24th, 2025, Sean Frank tweets, is Meta incremental anymore? Well, Sean, now you have your answer. Guess it is.
You only had to wait. You had to wait 6 months from your lips to Olivia's ears.
I think you owe Meta an apology.
Oh, dude, I owe Meta a lot, but they owe me too. Cody, thank you for being here. Olivia, thank you for being here. Mike, thank you for staying late. If you made it this far, you're a true friend of the operators. An hour and 45 minutes in, awesome data. Haus.io/meta to get this report sent directly to you. Thanks for Phil, Northbeam, Postscript, Saris Analytics, Rich Panel. Thank you, EFC, for making an awesome community. E-commerce Fuel, go ahead and join. Guys, it's an amazing episode, 145 minutes into it or however long. Great job being here.
That was fun.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Olivia. Great stuff. Good hanging, guys.